during 2017, 2016. That was kind of I might even describe it as kind of like a golden age of tournament Magic because it was very clear what the Pro Tour system was. It was very clear like what you needed to do. There were tons of qualifiers. Now, I can't speak for everywhere around the world. Maybe it was tougher if you're in Spain or in Europe, but it seemed like there were still plenty of opportunities if you wanted to work hard and move up some sort of tournament ladder at that time, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the system was the old system, and there were like a lot of big tournament, like all these like huge Las Vegas GPs or whatever, but also like a lot of GPs in Europe. It was definitely like a good moment for competitive Magic, but also the prices were like not very good. I
Hmm.
mean, like
Especially when
if
you factor in the travel, air travel, and lots of things.
exactly like when you talk about golden era, it's because like coverage was good in terms of like the marketing was good in tournaments, right?
Yeah,
But the
maybe
price
golden era for spectators like me, but not necessarily
exactly
for a player.
that's the thing. Like you could be like the top 20 player in the world, you could be platinum, and you could like don't have enough to live or whatever, you know? Like
Yeah.
they were called platinum pros, but the money was not
You still need
very
the
good.
sponsorships, you still need to write articles, you still need a lot of other things, right?
And like so that was for someone living in Spain and not in a very expensive area. But if you were American, like you will not have enough to live out of in platinum, right? Like
Hmm.
and platinum was like then again top 25 to top 30, I think, players in the world. So I'm talking about like the very unique players that will be the very best, right? So I think the tournaments were very fun to play, enjoyable, but the prize money was just not enough. Like the concept of pro, I felt it was like just like someone that between Magic prize money and the sponsorships or whatever, like barely get to, like live. Definitely not
It's
like
like a break
saving money
even
for the
or a
future.
living wage, right? Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like yeah. Actually, felt I remember like the platinum was like the minimum wage or something. You know,
Mm. Mm.
platinum without
If
counting the
you really
travel.
calculate it, it probably is.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was the minimum in Spain. I assume it was under the minimum one in US or whatever. You know, like it was not very good in terms of like actually living out of there. Of course, I mean, living in Spain or like other countries that are not very expensive, that's fine. But for someone living in, I don't know, any other more expensive country, like even the UK or whatever, it will be hard to actually make a good living. You can leave. Now, at some point, you are on your 27 years or something, saving some money for the future, or if something happens actually good, that's something you could not do as a Magic player unless you like won a PT. Which, of course, it's obviously good prize money, but you cannot count on winning a
Can't
PT every
expect that.
year. Even if
No.
you're, let's say you're the best, all right? Even if you're the best, you cannot count on winning a PT because it's just like variance or whatever, right? So I think this was a good time in the Magic for aspiring players in terms of like the road was very well made,
Hmm.
but the end of the road, the price situation there on the top of the mountain, it was not very good. It was minimum wage,
Right.
right? And that's a little bit of an issue of that moment because so we were the average age of the players was considerably lower to the point where this was acceptable anyway for most people.
Hmm.
But if you change the situation to all the people, you have a kid, for example, or whatever, like that's a whole different situation because now you're platinum, but you're also not saving much because you're barely, unless you win a PT, you're barely having like extra money
Hmm.
coming in and such, and that's, I'm saying like it was a good. I have also great memories of those times, but looking at it from like an economic perspective, it was
Far
so
from
so.
perfect. Yeah, far
Yeah,
from.
definitely not perfect. Like
Hmm.
I think the MPL area, or even the one we are now, even though it looks like it's supposed to be worse, I actually think it's better for different reasons. Like, it's less demanding because that one, it was super demanding. Like, if you wanted to, if you were lucky enough to be born in US or America or just live there, if you were lucky enough to live in America or US, sorry, America or Europe, you could play a lot of GPs to actually get platinum or gold way easier than other people
Hmm.
like on the other areas. But you also will have to travel all this, will have to need to have this money to travel to all the GPs and also the time, like the human energy to actually go through 10 GPs a year plus the PTs and such, which is something you might not be able to do if you had a family and, and two kids or whatever, being 38 years old. obviously you can do if you're like a 20-year-old man, but like that's fine. But like, there's a lot of different situations this system had that it's easy to forget once you think like, you had the GPs and the coverage, and that's great because there was a road to the PTM. That's true, and I have great memories of that. But let's not forget, there's like the same player was like 10 years older. Well, he might not be able to do all of this, right? And that's something also the new system, acknowledges in a way. Like I actually think the new system, like when they presented it, it was like, oh, this is not very good, and a lot of players were like, this is not great compared to what we had in the golden era, whatever you want to call it. I think it's actually great. Like I think the system is very good at doing what it does, which is like enable the PT Dream or whatever. It doesn't focus on having professionals because there were really not that many professionals anyway based on playing because the prize money was not actually there before the MPL, right? The system is like, okay, this is not there, but you can have a working life or whatever without being considerably, in a significant disadvantage to other people because you don't need to grind 25 tournaments. If you're in the PT, you don't even have to play the DRC. You can be the PT, you can play 3 tournaments a year on Worlds, and you can do that with a family and kids, right? It's very different to live, 16 times in a year than to live three. And I think the system is like a much, I don't want to say healthier, but like a more sustainable, I will say the word, more sustainable way of playing Magic competitively for people that actually have like a work, which they kind of expected to do because you cannot have a living out of being a pro, right? So